Back in 2011, Angry Birds was everywhere. They had multiple different games, toys, and movies, generating hundreds of millions of dollars.
Yo me acuerdo que Angry Birds era una de esas cosas que jugabais sin siquiera saber por qué. Como que lo bajabais porque era conocido, ¿no? Lo veía porque lo jugabais porque estaba ahí. Como Temple Run, Poe también, supongo que caía en esa categoría.
But by 2019, they
Weón, el Joyride estaba ahí también. Bueno, la élite de la Play Store.
were firing masses of staff, and since then things have only gotten worse. Perhaps it's just karma for stealing the initial idea. Angry Birds wasn't an original concept. In April 2009, a game was released named Crush the Castle, which required players to fire a trebuchet into a wooden structure hiding medieval people. Well, 8 months
Oye, lo mismo. Es exactamente lo mismo, weón. Es literalmente lo mismo, weón. Qué loco. ¿Y saben qué? Estuve investigando un poco, miné un poco fuera de stream y encontré esta weá, weón. Esto no se lo van a esperar. Real que no se lo van a esperar. ¿Le recuerda algo, no? Mira esta weá, ¿le recuerda algo? Ya sé que no van a creer, pero tiene que ver, weón. ¿Le recuerda algo, no? ¿Qué es? Díganme qué es. Flappy Bird. Miren la fecha, weón. 1 de marzo 2011. Y si vamos a Google, ¿cuándo salió Flappy Bird? 24 de mayo 2023. ¡Diablo! Ahí no la dejo, weón. Ahí no yo no digo nada. Que el video hable por sí solo. Ahí no la dejo, weón. Va, 2013. No, soy tonto, ya, perdón.
later, in December 2009, game developer Rovio made an app named Angry Birds, which, while clearly being a rip-off, was better in every way. It had cooler, cleaner animated graphics, and different stages, each with different levels. You got points for every enemy killed, and points for every bird you didn't use, giving players the chance to compete for high score.
No lo voy a mentir, Angry Birds nunca me gustó tanto. Como que jugaba dos y decía, esto todo el rato es lo mismo. Como que es un poco más grande este coso, pero le estoy haciendo la misma wea 1000 veces. Entonces como que no lo jugué más. Lo jugué lo justo y necesario, honestamente.
Throw in 5 different birds with 5 different abilities, as well as a cool, catchy soundtrack, and it's easy to see that Angry Birds was better. They'd developed 51 games prior to Angry Birds, none of which saw even the smallest bit of success. Therefore, when Angry Birds took only 2 months to become the #1 paid app in 60 countries, they understandably took the chance to milk it. They'd make loads of different varieties like Angry Birds Seasons,
Como que hay como 40 juegos de Angry Birds, ¿o no? Está lleno,
Angry
weón.
Birds Space and Angry Birds Star Wars, helping it become the
O quizás no eran tanto, pero cuando veía Angry Birds Star Wars, tú asumís que ya hicieron 40.000 weá, weón. Como que ya están exprimiendo la weá al máximo.
#1 paid app in Apple's App Store with 6 to 7 million paid downloads. By the end of Angry Birds,
¿Se compraban Angry Birds? ¿Quién chucha estaba comprando Angry Birds? ¿Cuántos juegos tiene Angry Birds? 20. Diablo, weón.
last year, they'd made $10 million, but players still demanded more. We have so many fans who have asked for the plush toys, so these are going to be available in a couple of weeks. And we're really trying to build Angry Birds into this entertainment franchise. It took only 4 months before that announced.
Quizá cuántas cosas más pudieron haberse convertido en esto si el developer del juego no hubiera sido como flojo. Quizá cuántas cosas serían un imperio si el developer de la web hubiera tenido la visión de hacerlo un imperio.
60,000 Angry Birds soft toys have been sold as the game itself became
Acá me dicen que 2. Posiblemente, weón. Yo creo que es una
the best-selling paid app of all time. Within Angry Birds itself, that implement microtransactions like Mighty Eagle, which allowed players to pay to clear entire levels, with celebs like Justin Bieber even advocating for it. And
chat 100% le pagaron por eso, ¿no? Amo el juego Angry Birds. Es muy bueno. Nah, 100% les deberían haber
Angry
pagado.
Birds made $100 million into celebs
Calmao.
like Justin Bieber even advocating for
Justin Bieber tenía 2000 likes por tweet. ¿Qué? ¿Qué chucha, weón? Uno pensaría que estos weones tienen como 200.000 likes, 300.000. millones.
Angry
weón.
Birds made 100 million in 2011 and went from 28 employees in the beginning of the year to 224 employees by the end of 2011. 5 months later, they set a new world record. First mobile game series to reach 1 billion downloads. They'd double their revenue again by the end of 2012, at which point they started to face a serious
Pero la speedronearon. Esto pasó como en 2 años. Está loco.
problem. The game was getting stale. They'd made multiple different Angry Birds versions, but hadn't changed the concept in over 3 years.
Pero es que, Chad, es un juego donde trae un pájaro y le rebota a edificios, weón. ¿Qué tanto va a cambiar? Es imposible cambiarlo tanto.
As a result, in the following year, their profits more than halved, with Angry Birds falling to 59th in the App Store, forcing the franchise to try a new format. They'd release Angry Birds Go at the end of 2013, and while this was somewhat of a Mario Kart ripoff, people absolutely loved it.
So, I mean, it's fun. It is good fun. It looks good. It plays well.
Professional
Pues es que lo dieron sacado para PC. Honestamente, weón. Quizá debieron haberse marketeado más para computador, weón. No, creo que es una idea estúpida. Creo que soy malísimo en esto, weón. Ya nadie me haga caso nada,
reviewers
weón.
gave it 7.7, while people on Reddit called it their favorite Angry Birds game and perfection at its finest. Rovio therefore continued to experiment, releasing an RPG game named Angry Birds Epic, which again received incredible reviews reading, "The latest Angry Birds title is a welcome addition to a franchise, which hasn't seen much change since its inception back in 2009. Similarly, users said it might be the best RPG title
Es que siento que para la mayoría del mundo, el Angry Birds es el primer juego. Y todo lo otro es como pura weá que hicieron porque sí.
I've ever
Es como con Planta vs Zombie un poco, weón. El uno es como el real. Y después vienen las otras versiones que...
played.
And honestly, a pretty solid time. I think the approach they went with here really worked and paid off.
The only problem was, these games didn't sell merch like the original Slingshot format. Therefore, merchandise sales plummeted, while total 2014 revenue dropped, and profits fell 73% to
Pero obvio, porque era un juego que no era muy bueno tampoco, weón. Yo creo que es un milagro que haya durado 4 años a esa altura.
10 million euros. As a result, media outlets reported, Rovio
Mi mamá los pirateaba, dice Carola. Tu mamá es la razón por la que Robio se fue a la quiebra, po, weón. Tu mamá hizo todo esto,
lays
weón.
off 110 people as Angry Birds hide
Ahora la van a buscar.
baids, representing 14% of the company's workforce. They try to fix their decline with yet another experiment, Angry Birds Pop, which was pretty unsuccessful. In a Reddit thread asking out of all the Angry Birds games, which one do you think is the worst, Pop was mentioned many times over. Therefore, they'd go back to basics and put out Angry Birds 2, the official sequel, although many called it a downgrade from the original. The sequel was filled to the brim with
Pero a esa altura siento que pueden haber sacado copias de todos los juegos existentes, ¿o no, weón? Que saquen un Angry Birds de Isaac. Estaría la raja, weón.
microtransactions, clearly annoying the fanbase who wrote, "This is a very greedy game that
Que saquen un Angry Birds de Portal. Muy bueno, weón.
keeps sucking money out of you. If you play well, the game becomes harder and harder until it's impossible, and then you either have
Yo le voy a decir algo, weón. No juego ningún juego de celular porque los juegos que tienen anuncio, weón, no los soporto, weón. Es que no los soporto, weón. No puedo, weón. Ni siquiera podéis como pagar para sacar todos los anuncios de todos los juegos, weón. Cada juego tiene anuncio y como que te hacen pagar $2 para sacarlo. Sale, weón. No hay chance. No quiero el anuncio, weón. Nunca me
to
dio, weón.
replay each level 10 times or buy gems. The game is just trying to
Los anuncios ni siquiera funcionan en mí. Yo estoy hecho distinto, weón. Si veo un anuncio, lo ignoro. Si veo un anuncio, no voy a comprarlo, weón. Lo siento,
throw
weón.
you off balance and get under your skin so that you pay more. The official IGN review said the game took significant steps backward for the massively popular series. Angry Birds 2 is missing key parts of what made previous games so universally compelling to gamers both hardcore and casual, young and old.
Pues es que están hablando de Angry Birds como si fuera Half-Life. No sé, weón. Están hablando de Angry Birds como si fuera un juego muy bacán. Era un juego de celular basiquísimo, weón. No era como... no era tan bueno, weón.
Still, due to its intense monetization, Angry Birds 2 became their highest earning game. Surprisingly, however, that very same year, they'd announced losses of almost 15 million and would fire a further third of their workforce, this time being over 200 people. This seemed to imply that Angry Birds was dead until they'd make an unexpected comeback.
¿Cuándo? ¿Cuándo? Angry Birds no ha sonado como en 10
Turns
años.
out they'd spent the previous 3 years privately developing the Angry Birds movie.
Ah, real.
At a cost of 73 million, they'd
Tenía todas las intenciones de verla, weón. Nunca la vi. Es como Angry Birds, normal. Es como la historia de Angry Birds.
made a
Y todos los otros juegos que hicieron.
risky bet.
Porque estoy como hater de Angry Birds, weón. Como que tengo algo personal con Angry Birds. No tengo nada personal con Angry Birds. Nada personal, se lo juro, weón.
But with a star-studded cast and a fun little story, the Angry Birds movie did surprisingly well. It made over 350 million from its 70 million budget and put Angry Birds back into the public spotlight. People began replaying their previously released games, while Angry Birds theme parks popped up in different countries. Media outlets reported Rovio Games had its best year ever in 2016. However, the gaming releases that Angry Birds was known for was still declining in quality. In his
Yo tengo una buena idea, weón. Saquen juego en Roblox, weón. El mono, saquen un juego donde está el mono de Angry Birds y separan un botón y eso desbloquea más botones, weón. Y tienes que farmear plata para desbloquear más botones, weón. Hagan eso, me tienen para siempre, weón. Hagan eso y tienen mi alma para siempre,
this
weón.
video, I played and ranked every Angry Birds game so you don't have to. Jake Miller talks about Angry Birds Action,
Angry Birds Action was the start of using the new anthropomorphic designs from the movies in their games, which I think most fans agree was the real beginning of the end for the series.
which happened to be the
¿Existe algún pájaro mujer? ¿Por qué no hay pájaros mujeres, weón? Quizá por eso fallaron.
first game after the movie. Similarly, in the Reddit thread asking about the worst Angry
Y falta un pájaro rosado, ¿eh? ¿Dónde está el pájaro mujer, weón?
Birds game, one user
Y me falta un pájaro gay. ¿Dónde está el pájaro gay, weón? No voy a jugar la weá si no tiene pájaro gay,
implied it
weón.
was most of them after the movie's release. Said games included Angry Birds Fight, aka a Candy Crush ripoff,
¿Hay pájaro gay? ¿De verdad, eh? No les creo. ¿Hay Angry Bird gay? La raja, pues, weón.
as well as Angry Birds Match, which was described as extremely bland. However, thankfully for Rovio, their older
Idea para Angry Birds. Saquen un juego que se llame Happy Bird y una copia de Happy Wheels. Y sponsoren a Fernan Flow, weón. Lo más posible es que les diga que sí. Así que, weón, háganlo. Ahí está, yo creo que ahí está la weá, weón.
titles was still extremely popular, with Angry Birds 2's revenue growing 47% in 2018, despite it being over 3 years old. This gave them the budget to make a second movie. However, their $65 million bet didn't pay off so well this time. Forbes wrote Angry Birds 2 is worse than the original in nearly every way, whilst Rotten Tomatoes critics added, a distressingly ineffective sequel that grows less and less interesting and more tiresome as it unfolds. Still, the movie made a profit of 82 million, right as the company was making some weird changes.
Pero ¿sabes qué? Siempre que hay profit así, como que doblan el presupuesto, weón. Como que la gente dice que fallaron nomás, weón. Como que la gente dice que fue un fracaso. Porque la weá tiene que ganar como $1 billón o a nadie le importa. Según Twitter, weón. Así es la weá, weón.
Despite their older games being low maintenance, Rovio decided to completely stop updating them. Then, without explanation, some of the older beloved titles, including the original Angry Birds, were deleted from the App
Ah, les dio la garrotera, weón. Les dio la weá nomás, weón.
Store. When people began to talk about what they'd done, people made compilations stating Angry Birds was dead. There were comments like, "Remember when Rovio actually cared?" whilst hashtag BringBack2012 began to trend on Twitter. Things got so bad that Rovio apologized, stating they only did it as maintaining the highest quality of updates and live operations isn't possible with our older games.
Pero para eso lo dejaban nomás, po, weón. ¿Sí o no? Lo dejaban y no le metían nada más. Y lo dejan ahí existiendo. No tienen que hacer nada más.
In response to the backlash that announced they planned on redeveloping Angry Birds Classic, which was re-released on the App Store in 2022, but at a price of $1.99 with no in-game purchases. They'd changed Classic's name to Red's First Flight, making it harder to find in the App Store, thus prompting players to buy the newer,
Pero qué weón los demandaron. Es que no hay explicación. ¿Qué chucha,
more
weón?
profitable game.
Bueno, por eso se fueron a la quiebra. No saben hacer nada.
This successfully fooled some people who struggled to find it on the App Store. However, others knew exactly what Angry Birds was doing. They got rid of the old ones so that you would have no other choice than to play the modern Candy Crush-esque games. They despised the games that made the company and so lost its spirit. Rovio basically confirmed this, openly stating they changed the name due to the game's impact on our wider games portfolio. They further requested that fans continue to bring that passion to our live Angry Birds slingshot games, such as Angry Birds 2.
Weón, creo que la decisión más estúpida que he escuchado en mi vida. ¿Cómo va a ser posible esa weá, weón?
However, players weren't too happy. We hope those fans can continue to bring that passion to our other games which have been designed to be more psychologically manipulative and stuffed with more microtransactions. Fixed it for you. The drama was so severe, it seemingly halted any future games, as Angry Birds Classic is still the most recent title, released way back in 2022. In 2023, Rovio was sold.
Chad, honestamente, weón. Angry Birds iba a morir en algún momento, weón. No puedo creer que haya llegado al punto en el que está. Y sé que hasta el altura me declaro hater de Angry Birds. No me gusta Angry Birds. Es un juego fome. No me gusta nada. Lo siento, weón. No lo odio. Pero no me gusta.
To Sega, although this has done little to fix their reputation. One recent tweet expressed.
Los reales haters de Angry Birds sabíamos desde el segundo juego que sacaron que esta cosa iba a pasar, weón.
I very much still love Angry Birds. That said, the current state of it is dog shit. My hope for the franchise is at an all-time low right now.
Tú te pareces al pájaro bomba. ¿Cuál pájaro bomba? No parezco nada al pájaro bomba. Pero sé que es un halago porque está todo guapo el pájaro bomba. Está acá el pájaro bomba, me gusta el pájaro bomba. Angry Birds. Mujer. Hoy está acá, ¿no, weón? De verdad había una pájara mujer, weón, no tenía idea. Está bueno, weón.
I'll just continue to enjoy what I love about it, but it's sad to see what it's become. Despite everything, Angry Birds isn't finished, as they just announced they're making a third movie, although with the rest of the franchise.
Nah, sabes que Angry Birds yo le voy a dar un consejito, weón. Hora de rendirse, hagan videos como Coco Melón, weón. Nada que hacerle, weón. Nada que hacerle, cabrón.
Franchise in
Lo siento.
decline, its performance might be interesting.
Y paró así, de la nada. Gente, si les gustó el video fue de Sony V2. Está en la descripción. Así que yo me retiro con ¡Marciano!
El video ha llegado a su fin, espero lo hayas disfrutado. Like, campanita y sub por eso.